Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and I thought we'd compare the latest flagships from both Apple and Samsung to help you decide which would be best for you. With the iPhone 17 Pro Max this year, it starts at $1,199, goes up to $1,999, and has a 256, 512, 1TB, and 2TB storage option, and all of them have 12GB of RAM. With the S26 Ultra, it starts at $1,299.99, goes up to $1,799.99, and has 256, 512, and 1TB options. You'll get 12 gigs of RAM with the 256 and 512, and 16 gigabytes of RAM with the 1TB option. When it comes to the design this year, both of them are a little bit different. The iPhone is now using aluminum. Apple says it's fairly strong. It seems to be that it can dent easily if you drop it, so you need to be careful, but they've used aluminum or aluminium for years. The overall design is a little bit different with the camera plateau. They've moved some of the antenna lines, and it's nice and curved around the outside edge and feels very nice to hold on to. All of the buttons are in the same spot with your power, sleep, wake, camera control, and then on the bottom we have USB-C along with our speaker and microphone, and then on the left-hand side we've got our volume buttons and action button. So pretty typical there, along with all your different antenna lines. With the S26 Ultra, this year it's also using light armor aluminum. Samsung says it's their strongest aluminum ever, and it's again aluminum, a little bit more curved this time around, but it's a little different looking as well now that we have this ring around the three main cameras. So again, slightly different there, with no buttons on the left-hand side, nothing really on the top other than a couple microphones, and then on the right-hand side we have our power, sleep, wake, volume button, and on the bottom we've got our USB-C along with a speaker and microphone, and we still have a SIM card tray that's a physical SIM card tray. In the US, the iPhone does not have this, and then we also have an S Pen. So they're still keeping that. You can use the S Pen for different tasks and things on the display. We'll talk about the displays more in depth in a moment, but both of them have some pretty great glass on them this year. The iPhone 17 Pro Max has Ceramic Shield 2. It's much more durable. So far, I don't have a single scratch on it. And with the S26 Ultra, we have Corning Gorilla Armor 2. So again, similar quality glass, very scratch resistant, very damage resistant if you drop it, and they seem to be holding up very well this year. Both of them also have an anti-reflective coating on them, where the S26 Ultra is a little less coated as far as that goes when it comes to the S25 Ultra. However, with the displays on, the anti-reflectivity is the same. So if we unlock both, you can see in the lighting here, it's about the exact same, but it's nice that they both have that option. Both are 6.9-inch displays, and both go up to 120 Hz refresh rates, with Apple calling it ProMotion where it's variable. The iPhone 17 Pro Max also is a little bit brighter, up to 3,000 nits, where the S26 Ultra goes up to 2,600 nits. It's hard to tell the difference in bright light, but it's definitely noticeable a little bit. When it comes to PWM, or the way the displays control brightness, with the S26 Ultra, it's at about 490 Hz, which means typically it shouldn't bother your eyes unless maybe it's at a lower brightness level. Typically that's fast enough where people that are even the most sensitive to it, it really shouldn't bother, and I haven't noticed any issues. However, if you're super sensitive to PWM, or basically the display flickering faster or slower, you can't perceive it with your eyes, but you perceive it as being brighter or more dim. It typically can cause headaches, make you feel nauseated, or just cause eye strain in general. 1 in 10 people experience this, but with this phone, so far I haven't experienced that. The display looks great. Some people have complained of it maybe bothering their eyes, but I haven't experienced this myself. However, on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, Apple added an option this year to turn on display pulse smoothing. It smooths out PWM and completely removes the issue I was having with PWM on iPhones. So it makes my eyes much more relaxed, there's no issue looking at it, and I no longer get eye strain from it or headaches. Now, before we talk about the cameras, to get the most out of your S26 Ultra or iPhone camera, today's sponsor Insta360 with the Flow 2 Pro makes content creation even better. The all-in-one design gives you not just a gimbal to enhance stability, but a tripod, built-in selfie stick, and a power bank with up to 10 hours of extra battery life. Using the Insta360 app, you get smooth tracking across all lenses with pro-level zoom control. You can select your lens and smoothly zoom in and out like you have a power zoom lens from the ultra-wide to the telephoto zoom lens. Using the AI tracker, you can unlock smooth, hands-free subject tracking across any third-party app or phone model, whether it's an S26 Ultra, iPhone 17 Pro Max, or other Android phones. You can even start and stop tracking and recording using simple hand gestures. If you focus on content creation like I do or just like to take a lot of videos, the Flow 2 Pro is one of the best accessories for the S26 Ultra or 17 Pro Max. Get the Insta360 Flow 2 Pro, your pocket AI filmmaker. You can save up to 30% off right now, and the first 30 orders will get a free MagSafe phone mount. I'll leave a link in the description below. When it comes to the cameras this year, the forward-facing camera on the 17 Pro Max gets an upgrade to 18 megapixels and is also an open gate sensor. So what that means is you can use the full width of the sensor, and if we go into maybe photo mode here or video mode, tap this button while holding it vertically, you can still use it horizontally in landscape because it's using the full width of the sensor. That's something new there. And then with the rear cameras, we're 48 megapixels on all of them, whether it's the main, ultra wide, or telephoto, which now has 4 times optical zoom and then 8 times punching into the sensor. We have pro features as well with the rear camera. We still have 4K 120, HDR, Apple ProRes RAW, Genlock support if you're using third-party apps, and basically everything you want to make this a pro camera if you want to do that. Now with the S26 Ultra, the front-facing camera doesn't get much of an upgrade hardware-wise as it still records in 4K 60 and is still 12 megapixels. However, it does have an upgrade with AI processing to make skin tones more realistic. The rear cameras are what are upgraded this year. We still have a 200 megapixel sensor, but it now has a wider aperture allowing in 47% more light. The 50 megapixel telephoto also allows in 37% more light as well. Samsung showed off what they called nightography with less noise, and this is regardless of the lens you used. I showed this in the early unboxing video as well as a first hands-on look video, and it looked pretty impressive, but we'll test it out a little bit more. Now with the rear camera, if we go into our options here, we have 4K 60 or 8K 30, at least in standard mode. We have more options throughout, but if we go into more, for example, and then into Pro Video, we not only have log options, we have LUT options, and we also have 4K 120. So depending on how you want to set this up, gives you different options, and then you can change your LUT where it says select a LUT preview, and you have different options here. So lots of different things if you really want to make it look cinematic, or you can customize it afterwards if you'd like to. We also have tools to help us with exposure, such as zebras and false color, something you don't get built into the native app, at least on iPhone. You can get that in third-party apps, though. And if we go back to our different video modes here, we'll go into video, you'll see you've just got a lot of nice options here. For example, horizontal lock. This is something new that you can hold this phone just like this, and depending on how you rotate it, the background still stays steady. For example, if I lock it right here, I'll show a different example later, but you can rotate this 360 degrees and it will still stay steady. So if you want to use it like a gimbal, you can do that, again, with the Insta360 Flow 2 Pro, and it will give you even more stable video. You'll see the horizon stays level, and it's just a nice option to have. So lots of good options this year, better low light and everything else, but let's go ahead and take a look at what the photos and video look like, and you can judge for yourself which one you think looks best. This is the forward-facing camera on the S26 Ultra and the 17 Pro Max. It gives you an idea of how it handles dynamic range, as well as skin tones. At least on the display of the S26 Ultra, the skin tones look more natural. However, it may look a little bit different after it's processed, but let me know which one you think looks best. And then, of course, the microphone, as far as which one sounds best. I've got everything set to default on standard, so again, let me know which one you think looks best and sounds best in the comments below. When it comes to the battery, the iPhone 17 Pro Max has a 5088 mAh battery that's good for around 11.5 to 12 hours of screen on time, depending on the use you're seeing and how you use your phone. The S26 Ultra has a 5000 mAh battery, the same as last year, and again is around 11.5 to 12 hours. Very similar in battery life. Some say that the S26 Ultra gets about half hour more, but it really depends on how you're using it. When it comes to charging this year, the S26 Ultra has the iPhone Beat, but we do have an upgrade with both. The 17 Pro Max can charge to 50% in 20 minutes using a 40-watt fast charger and has 25-watt wireless charging for 50% in 30 minutes. That's utilizing MagSafe, so that's built into the back here, and of course it charges it like you would expect, up to Qi 2 25-watt charging. However, the S26 Ultra also has similar Qi 2 25-watt charging this year. However, we now have 60-watt wired fast charging that gives you 75% in 30 minutes. Now, if you want to use a MagSafe compatible charger, you'll need one of Samsung's cases or a third-party case that has this magnet ring built in. Once it's attached, you can have super fast charging. You'll see it charges there, and on the lock screen, depending on how it's aligned and what charger you're using, it will say super fast charging, but you need the right power to do that. But again, it's Qi 2 25-watt capable, but you do have 60-watt fast charging this time around. Now, of course, one of the big features this year of the S26 Ultra is its new privacy display. If we scroll down here in our settings, we have privacy display and we have some different options. This is typically meant to use using customization. For example, if a notification comes in, you can have that in privacy mode and completely blanked out from the side here with different angles. However, you can turn it on all the time if you want, but it can affect the display when you do that. Depending on which mode you have, it's currently on now. If I tilt it to the side, it's completely black. However, if I turn this feature off, so let's go ahead and turn it off here, you'll see that now when I tilt it, you can see it still. But if I bring this back on, it's hard to see. But in the maximum privacy protection mode, it sort of makes the display a little gray. I wouldn't expect you to use this all the time, but it does bring maximum privacy protection. So it looks okay. You'll see it looks a little bit washed out when it's in maximum privacy mode. But if we go in here, turn that off, it just looks like it dims a little bit. Some people have said they can notice maybe this display looking more grainy. However, I would recommend, if you're seeing that, to just go into the display modes and turn it up to QHD. So as long as it's at QHD, I haven't noticed any issues. So let me bring it in close so I can show you with and without privacy mode, as it typically degrades it a little bit, but that's how it uses privacy mode. But again, this is meant to be used only when it's something coming in. For example, a notification comes in. It can blank that out. I'll show you in a moment. And then also, if I open 1Password, it will automatically turn on if a password screen comes up or a PIN screen. That's the way I have it configured. So let me go ahead and bring in the zoom here. So I just turned privacy mode off, and if we take a close look at the display, you can see it here. So this is what the display looks like up close in QHD mode. Again, YouTube compression probably doesn't help, but if we turn this mode on, you'll see it does appear to get a little bit more dim, but it looks pretty good overall. But if you're seeing it with a lens, you can notice a little bit of a difference. But from the side, again, privacy mode is on, but if we turn on maximum protection, that's where it affects it the most. So you'll see again, if we do maximum privacy protection, that's where it's definitely more noticeable. But again, it keeps your screen private. It looks better than a privacy screen protector for sure, and it's nice that it's built in. But again, you don't have to use it all the time. When it's off and customized, you'll see it's currently on. Now it's customized and off, the display looks great. Now, there was some debate whether or not it was 10-bit, and it seems that it's not truly a 10-bit panel, but has more of a 10-bit pipeline to make things look a little bit better. So comparing the displays side by side, honestly, the S26 Ultra looks great. It depends how you set up the display, but I think most people will be very happy with this display. And at the Samsung event, most people said the display looked phenomenal. And I agree with that. So I really have no issues with it. And again, when privacy mode is on, of course, it degrades a little bit, but that's the compromise. But if we go into messages, so I'll turn privacy mode off. And then when I get a message, because it's customized, it will be blocked out from the side. So I'll go ahead and send myself a message here. It should pop in just a second. If I tilt it, only the message is blanked out. I think that's a great feature. When it goes away, again, it's only affecting that part of the display. We'll do it one more time. Again, only the message is blanked out. I think that's the best way to use privacy display, and I think this is a great feature I'm sure we'll see across different devices in the future. When it comes to connectivity this year, we have 5G and Wi-Fi 7 on both, so no real change there. They're both fairly fast, and if maybe we do a speed test here on the same network, you'll see we're getting about the same speeds. I ran the speed test on the 17 Pro Max using Apple's N1 chipset, and then on the S26 Ultra. So this is actually Wi-Fi 5. That's why it's not as fast. It can definitely go faster, but it just depends what router you're actually connected to. But very similar speeds on both, no real issues there, and they both perform well when it comes to cellular connectivity as well. You'll see they're both on similar networks. However, the S26 Ultra seems to have more bars. So there may be a little bit better connectivity there, but that's typical of Android versus iPhone for some reason. But it depends on the network you're on. For example, the S26 Ultra is currently on AT&T and the iPhone 17 Pro Max is on T-Mobile. So it just varies depending on the band you're on, or I'm in a brick building and AT&T's frequencies tend to do a little bit better in that situation. When it comes to the speakers, let's go ahead and take a listen and see which ones sound better and are also louder. So I've got this set up. I've got some royalty-free music from Epidemic Sound. Let's go ahead and press play and see how loud it gets and what it sounds like. We'll start at half volume. So based off the decibel meter, we're getting about 93 decibels on the 17 Pro Max. I've seen up to 95 decibels, but with the S26 Ultra, we're seeing 99 decibels. Now that's louder than you should be listening to them, but it stays clear at the highest volumes on both of them. I'd say they sound about the same, very clear. The response is a little bit different on the S26 Ultra, but bass is good on both, and both stay fairly clear to the highest volume. So overall, pretty impressed with the S26 Ultra there. It seems to be a little bit louder than I would have expected. When it comes to processors this year, both are pretty good. We have the iPhone 17 Pro Max with the A19 Pro and 12 gigs of RAM. And here we have the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, and this one has 12 gigs of RAM. But if you have the 1 terabyte, like I mentioned before, you'll have 16 gigs of RAM. Let's run a couple simple tests though. So here you'll see we have Geekbench. Let's just run a simple test here for CPU benchmark and see what we get. Benchmarks completed. On the left, we have a higher single-core score than the S26 Ultra with 3,826 compared to 3,589. The multi-core score, I have seen this go over 10,000 on a 17 Pro Max, but just over 10,000, currently at 9,830. On the S26 Ultra, it's 10,948. So it really depends on the task you're doing, but that doesn't show the full picture. Now let's just check 3D Mark as well. So we'll tap Start. Give it a few minutes to complete and see what we've got here. Both completed, so let's take a look here. We have 5,426 on the 17 Pro Max with an average frame rate of 32.5. And then on this S26 Ultra, 5,876 with an average frame rate of 35.19. So a little bit better on the S26 Ultra. Both devices are quite warm after running that test. Basically what I would expect, but nothing abnormal as they both have vapor chambers. When it comes to overall speed, well, it varies depending on what you're doing. iOS 26 is to blame for a little bit of the stuttering. The S26 Ultra, honestly, in my using it over a week or so, seems to be nice and smooth all the time. Now also, if we go into Call of Duty mobile, for example, everything seems to be nice and smooth. Of course, this is only the tutorial, but on the S26 Ultra, you can see how fast and smooth everything is. No real issues moving around. Everything looks pretty great. And the same is true on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. So again, moving around, everything's nice and smooth and fast. The S26 Ultra might feel a little bit faster in this case, but we're seeing about the same frame rates, it looks like. So whether you're playing Call of Duty, Fortnite, PUBG, Genshin Impact, or anything else, I'm seeing similar performance across both of them. Now, if you play that for a half an hour or so, the heat dissipation may vary, but both of them seem to do a good job with the new vapor chambers. Now, when it comes to the software, there's a lot to talk about here, but we'll go over some of the new features with the S26 Ultra. We've had Apple Intelligence for a while. We're still waiting for the Siri update, but with the S26 Ultra, they continue to introduce new features. For example, with the photos, you can take a photo and edit it after the fact, and then you can do that on the iPhone, but nothing like you can on the S26 Ultra. For example, let's try something simple. So with the camera here, I took a photo, and you now have this AI button that we've had with Samsung for a little while, but now we can change the photo after the fact a lot easier. Of course, we have the AI eraser that we can just circle here. It will try and get rid of that where I erased it, but let's go back. We can fix that here a little bit better. Maybe we'll get rid of the cord of the HomePod. It recognizes what it is, and we tap erase. Give it a second here on the S26 Ultra. And while it's doing that, let's go ahead and do the same thing on the iPhone. So we'll go in and edit the same photo that I took here. We'll go to Cleanup, which is the same sort of thing. For some reason, it oftentimes has to download Cleanup. So again, we have to give it time to do that. So on the iPhone, maybe we want to get rid of this here. We'll try and recognize it, see how well it does. So again, give it a second, and it should get rid of it. So that compared to the S26 Ultra, the S26 Ultra did a better job. Apple Intelligence just isn't as good when it comes to that. Now here's another example. I shared this online a little bit, but one thing you can do is go to Create. If you go to Create, you can describe something in the photo that you want to change. So let's go ahead and try that. Get rid of the lines in the window. Tap Generate. It takes a moment, and using generative AI and fill, it sort of gets rid of things. So let's see what it does here. So give it a moment here to figure it out, and it gets rid of the lines in the window. You can actually show previous, bring it back, or you could fill it in entirely. So it works really well, and that's a feature that you get on the S26 that maybe in the future we'll get something closer to that on the iPhone, but you just don't have anything similar to that right now that's built in. It also can organize your screenshots, things like that in the S26 Ultra, and it has an audio eraser in third-party apps if you want to get rid of noise. And we also have something called Now Nudge. This is more similar to what Apple promised with Apple Intelligence, where it intelligently knows what you're looking at in messages. So it uses the keyboard to understand context, and maybe I went to a park with someone, we took a bunch of photos. If we're talking about that, using the Samsung keyboard, it will understand that and maybe generate the photos that it thinks we want to see. Here's an example from Samsung's event, and these are sorts of things with context that we expect from Apple Intelligence in the future that's just not there yet. Now, we do have features such as call screening on both of them, spam protection, and things like that, but it looks like we're going back and forth, and with Gemini built in, you can just do way more than you can with the iPhone currently. So whether it's the weather, context, or anything else, Samsung wins for now, but we'll have to wait and see what Apple has once they incorporate Siri with Gemini later on. When it comes to the operating systems, iOS 26 is the latest from Apple with Liquid Glass. Some people love it, some people don't. OneUI 8.5 is quite good on the S26 Ultra. Everything is super fluid and smooth, and the overall experience is decent on both of them. It really comes down to what you want from both. If you want a little bit more openness, a little bit more ease of maybe loading third-party applications, the S26 Ultra is easier with that. If you want seamless integration with maybe a MacBook, iPad, or something else with Apple with an Apple Watch, well then of course you want to go iPhone. It really comes down to what you're trying to get out of your device. However, the S26 Ultra is so good, I could switch over to it as my main device with the lack of maybe Find My being one of the major issues for me. So Find My, I know you can use Google with that, but Find My and a few different features with messages is the reason I'm still using an iPhone. However, I prefer the S26 Ultra in a lot of ways as it's just super smooth. smooth, it's customizable, and things just seem to work where sometimes you get glitches and issues with the iOS 26 update. Many people don't like liquid glass being throughout the overall interface. Some people love it, some don't. I'm sort of indifferent to it. I think it's getting better, but OneUI 8.5 is solid, everything works fast, and it's fluid like you would expect. There's definitely some differences between each, but the more you use maybe Gemini or different features on the S26, it's hard to go back to Apple Intelligence here. Typically, I find that I end up using Gemini that's built into the iPhone app here. So I download the app and use it that way, and it's just not as good as having it integrated. So I think we'll see these things in the future, but if you don't care about any of those, well, then that won't help your decision at all. So hopefully all of that helps you decide what would be best for you. Let me know what you're going with in the comments below. Maybe you're waiting for the iPhone 18 Pro and the S27 next year. We'll have to wait and see what those are, but this year they've been pretty great phones overall, and I think either one is a great option, and it really just depends on what you're looking for. Again, let me know what you're choosing in the comments below, and of course I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.